Welcome back to the shop. Today we are going to do something that I've actually never done before. We're going to make a sphere. I've got this chunk of red oak and I'm going to make this into a wooden sphere. Now before we get started, we actually have to make some jigs because I've actually never done this before. I've thought about it. I've had students ask me to make this before, but I've never actually made one. So before we even hit the lathe and start making the sphere, what we're going to do is we're going to make a circle jig so that we have a reference for what a true sphere is. And then we're also going to make a set of cone centers so that we can actually grip this thing once it's ready. So let's get making them and then we'll get working on the sphere. Now that we're over here at the drill press, I have a 2 5/8 inch Forstner bit, which is just the biggest bit I have on hand, and a piece of 1/4 inch MDF scrap. And again, this will create a perfect circle that we'll cut a chunk out of, that will give us a reference so that as we're turning, we know whether or not we are getting perfectly circular. So with that said, drill her out, move over to the bandsaw. So here we have it. We have our drive cone in the front and our tail cone in the back, which has been drilled out. So that goes right there. And we can now put a ball in between the two of them and measure it with our jig. So with that said, let's take all of this off and then let's actually start turning our sphere. Now that we have the piece roughed out, I've got some grid lines I've laid out on it. The first is 2 5/8, which is the diameter of the ball we want. And then the middle line right here is the dead center. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start from this point and round down this way, and start from this point and round down that way. And when we get closer, as we get closer to that final shape, I'll be checking it with this grid. Obviously you can see doesn't fit yet. And so as we bring it down, I'll be using this to try and get as close to a sphere as I can. And once we have it pretty spherical, we'll pull it out of this, put it between the centers. The ball is now mounted between centers, and it is pretty close to the middle. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna turn this middle section right here. And then once we have that turned, we'll put a line there. We'll rotate the ball 90 degrees and keep doing that until everything is pretty flush. Again, it's a kind of tedious process, but it's how you get a perfect sphere by hand. We have our sphere, and it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. I've got it sanded to 80 grit. Again, it was just turned and then sanded to get it down to this. And what I've got now is I've got a stack of sandpaper, and I'm gonna work through from 180 all the way up to 600 grit, get this nice and smooth. And again, it's gonna be a long process because we have to sand in this direction, rotate it, and then we'll switch grit. So it'll take a bit of time, but we're gonna fast forward through all this, get this piece sanded up. The last job to do with our new ball is to add some oil and finish it up. So again, just pouring some oil on and rubbing it in. The benefit of using a totally food safe oil like this is that, you know, it makes sense to use a paper towel sometimes, but with a piece like this, just put it in your hands, rub it around, make sure it gets in all of it. And it is almost a perfect sphere, so there's not much, there's really no nooks and crannies to get it in. Just simply put it on and then wipe off the excess. And here we are, our finished sphere. Again, not totally perfect, definitely has some flat spots and some high points, but for a first attempt, this came out really well. Again, I did have to take off a fair bit more material than I had originally planned. This is definitely not the 2 5/8 inches that we had originally started with, but for a first attempt, this turned out really well, and it's definitely proof of concept that these would make interesting pieces to bring to shows. Again, if you like this video, please like. If you want to follow and see more, please subscribe to the channel. And as always, have a great day, everybody.